everybody, Claire here. In this sewing tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make a padded mini case. This project is a great way for you to use up those fabric scraps. I've included a square template in your package, giving you the option to make a patchwork design, or if you like, you can just go with the solid fabric, which will also look great. If you're new to sewing, don't worry, this is a super easy project and I'll guide you through it step by step. In under 30 minutes, you'll have a handmade sunglass case you'll love. Okay, let's get started. You will see in your downloaded file, I've included a checklist.
Look, I've got everything right here.
On this checklist is your PDF printable pattern, fabric for the main and lining, cotton wadding for padding, a press stud for the closure or button and elastic, matching thread, scissors, clips, some scraps to make a hump jumper, sewing machine, basting spray or pins and clips. If you are doing the patchwork version, gather your fabric scraps. Try mixing different colors and textures to create something unique. Cut out 12 squares with the template provided and arrange them 2 per row. Sew each row together with a 6mm seam allowance on a straight stitch. I work row to row like this. Don't forget to press your seams to one side as you go. Now whether you've made a patchwork panel or used a solid fabric, we're ready to move on. If you're making the solid version, simply trace and cut your main fabric, lining and wadding to the same size. For the patchwork version, take your finished patchwork rectangle and place it on top of the wadding. To help keep it in place while cutting, I like to use the basting spray on the corners. Just a light little spray will temporarily bond it to the wadding, making cutting easier. If you don't have this spray, no worries. You can simply cut them out first, then use clips or pins to hold them together. Now that everything is cut, we need to do a stay stitch around the main fabric and wadding to keep those layers in place and to prevent any stretching while we sew. Starting 1 centimeter from the raw edge, sew a straight stitch all the way around. Now we have all our pieces cut and secured, we are ready to snip in our notches. Stack your main wadded fabric, lining and paper pattern on top of each other, making sure all edges match up. Find your arrows and use sharp snips or fabric scissors to make a small 3mm snip at each notch. Be careful not to snip too deep. If you're using elastic, twist and sew it on the right side of your main fabric, in between the 2 notches. Lay your pieces like this. Place your main wadded fabric and lining right sides together. We are going to sew along the bottom edge with a 1 centimeter seam allowance, making sure you backstitch at the start and end. Now we are going to top stitch on the right side of the lining. Sew a straight line close to the seam. As you sew, make sure the underseam is pressed towards the lining side. This gives it a clean and professional finish. Move over to your ironing board and iron the top stitch seam flat. Fold main and lining pieces wrong sides together and press all layers, making sure the top stitching is only visible on the lining side. Check that your notches are in place. Now take the folded seam and bring it up to meet the notches. This should create a straight, even line from notch to notch. Bring the lining up, lay it flat so the rounded edges match at the top. At this point, you should have 2 folded edges at the bottom and 2 notches at the top. When sewing, you are going to start at this notch here. I sew down and then across. Sewing down makes it easier when we flip it out later. Leave the folded bottom edge unsewn, then repeat on the other side. Use your clips or pins to hold all your layers together. If you have any labels, pin them in place now, making sure it's in between the main fabrics, not the lining. Jump on your sewing machine. Starting a couple of mils away from that snip, stitch about 4 or 5 stitches down and then turn it. Keep sewing with a 1 centimeter seam allowance. As you're sewing, you will notice that there is a thick, bulky area where our fabric layers sit. To keep your stitching even and to prevent skip stitches, use a hump jumper. This helps the presser foot guide smoothly over the bulk. Make your own hump jumper by folding a piece of fabric to match the thickness of the bulky area. With needle down, slide the hump jumper underneath the back of your presser foot. You will already see that this levels out the foot, allowing the machine to sew evenly across. Now continue sewing once you've passed that thick area and do the same on the other side. Before we turn our case right sides through the opening, make a small snip in the corners, here and here. With 2 fingers, insert them into the opening and grab one corner, slowly pulling it through. This is the most exciting part.
Reveal yourself to me.
This can be a little bit fiddly, so just pull it bit by bit. You're doing great. You can use a knitting needle, a chopstick, or your hands to push those corners out. Head over to your ironing board and give it a nice press, tucking in the opening raw edges. To seal that opening, I like to hand stitch it closed. Align the edges together. You can put a pin in place if you like. Grab your thread and needle and tie a small knot at the end. Insert the needle close to the edge, tuck the tail of the thread inside and create small stitches just below the fold. Once you finish, loop a couple of times around your needle to make a knot. Follow the needle through before cutting and give it a good press with your iron. In your press stud kit, you should have instructions on how to attach them. There are many ways to do this, and each press stud kit is different, so make sure you read the instructions before you start. Find the center and mark it where you want it to be. Put something solid underneath so you don't mark your table. You are going to pierce a small hole with the punch tool on the top of your main fabric. Place the punch in the position and hammer it down hard 2 or 3 times. You should be left with a neat hole. Next, push the male shank through the hole. Align the round side in the round base tool. Position your female socket over the snap and align the spreading tool with the hole and lightly hit it with the hammer until both sections of the snap are securely united. To find where the underside should be placed, push down like this and it should create a ring. Repeat on the underside by piercing a hole with the punch tool in the middle of that circle. Push the male shank through the fabric, place it on top of the base tool and position the female shank through the hole. With your spreading tool, hit it lightly with the hammer. And that's it! Whether you've made a solid version or a patchwork version, you now have a unique, handmade mini case. I hope you enjoyed this project and that you feel like you're more confident in your sewing skills. I love how the patchwork case uses up scraps and adds a personal touch. If you found this tutorial helpful, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more fun sewing projects. And if you make your own case, tag me on social media. I love to see what you create. Thanks for watching and happy sewing!